Hello and welcome back to another Magic the Gathering EDH deck tech idea. Today we are taking a look at one of my favorite mono-black legends. Stay tuned as we talk about Drana, the last Bloodchief. But before we jump into today's video, I want to make a shout out for Mythatom. Check out their high quality Magic the Gathering and other fantasy products via the link in the notes below and use my discount code LATSEL for 10% off your order. This is a mono-black reanimator deck, and one of its themes is that I have built my list only around non-legendary creatures because Drana, on attack, can only reanimate non-legendary creatures. We have our usual weakness as being in one color identity, so we struggle with artifact or also enchantment removal. There are a few cards by now that can handle a few of those things, but you also gotta draw them in a game of Commander. Furthermore, one of Drana's weaknesses is that your opponents get to choose which cards you should reanimate out of your graveyard. Of course, if there is only one card, it will be that specific card, but if they are having a choice, they can choose. Because of that, many players build Drana a little bit wrong. Many players go for cards that might fill up your graveyard, like cards like Stitcher's Supplier, but once it got removed, your opponents will use this card against you by simply reanimating this one over and over again. This is why you will mostly only find very impactful creatures in my list, and as a usual weakness of reanimator decks, graveyard hate is one of your weaknesses. This is why we play only very limited graveyard fill up, to make sure that we don't throw too many resources in our bin, which our opponents can handle easily with cards like Bojuka Bog, for example. The big strength about Drana's attack trigger is that on attack you will get the trigger, but there's no target with this trigger on the stack. This means that if your opponents have limited graveyard hate and you have multiple targets in your graveyard, they will have to make a decision on which card to exile before the trigger resolves, and afterwards the trigger resolves and you will still get one of the few remaining creatures. And now I would say, let's jump right into the deck. We will spend our early game with firing off a bunch of edicts to simply control the board. But along the way we will also use different cards that work in our favor by controlling the board state and also feeding our game plan. This is why we play cards like Bitter Triumph. This is a very powerful instant speed removal spell, not only in standard, but also in decks like these, it's a very synergistic card. A similar card on sorcery speed is Bone Shards. This is a little bit cheaper, but you are limited to your turn. But still, you will use to discard a card as additional cost, throw one of your powerful creatures into your graveyard, which you will later reanimate. I have been talking about enchantment removal, and one always stands out for me personally, it's Mire in Misery. Sure, this is a sorcery speed edict effect, but it will also target enchantments of players who don't have any creatures on the battlefield, or that simply prefer to sacrifice their enchantment over their creature. In the best case scenario, this card is a 3-for-1 trade, which is the reason why edicts are so powerful. When it comes to a scaling single target removal spell that only gets better and better, especially in mono black decks, we play Defile. A powerful -1/-1 spell that also gets around indestructible, always keep that in mind. Kinda a similar card is Tragic Slip. Even if you are behind in the game and your opponents fighting against each other, this one can still be in your favor to remove a really powerful creature if another creature already died this turn. Another really synergistic card, especially with our commander, is Will of the Abzan. Already beforehand it is a very powerful edict effect, but with our commander on the battlefield we can reanimate a powerful creature and in addition to that make our opponents sacrifice their strongest one. When it comes to filling up our graveyard, we play a few very synergistic cards that also provide more value for us in the long run. One of my favorite personal artifacts is Collector's Vault, and already in this deck it also puts in a lot of work. For 2 mana and tapping it, you draw a card, discard a card that you want to reanimate, and also accelerate your mana base by creating a treasure token. We also play Matsalantli, the Great Door. This is a powerful looting mechanic, which doesn't provide any additional card advantage, but makes us dig through our deck, and once we flip it to its backside, it becomes a really powerful land that cares about permanent cards in our graveyard, and aside from all of our edicts, we also will bin a bunch of permanent cards. When it comes to controlled graveyard fill-up, we have to play Ripples of Undeath. This powerful enchantment from Modern Horizons 3 has been a staple in a bunch of graveyard strategies. And there's a valid reason why. If this one is on the battlefield, you will fall behind a little bit in tempo simply because you have to pay 1 mana and 3 life, but you get a powerful card selection tool out of 3 cards, and the others that you will put into your graveyard will simply stay there, and in the best case, those are the creatures that you will want to reanimate. If we need to make a really impactful turn, turn, we also can start off with Unmarked Grave and find the creature that we exactly need for the current situation. Another sorcery spell that we can use is Ransack the Lab. Again, this can fix our land drop, for example, and bin other cards that we want to have in our graveyard. With Blue Borrow, we also got Dire Sight, the better read the bones of graveyard decks, because this card surveils instead of scries and also provides additional card advantage. And now let's talk about a few cards that we will want to reanimate with Drana's attack trigger. Because this is an attack trigger and we are a monocolored deck, we are very limited when it comes to additional combat steps. My list also doesn't feature any additional combat artifacts, but it features a bunch of creatures which have immediate impact as soon as they hit the battlefield. For example, one of those cards is Rottenmouth Viper. It will come back as a 7/7 and will already start accumulating blight counters on it, which if it stays unanswered will definitely be a problem for all of your opponents. A card that is extremely powerful in Modern and also works in a reanimator strategy there is Archon of Cruelty. Sure, its ETB and attack trigger only targets one opponent, but that trigger provides so much free value that you definitely want to reanimate this one. Again, when it comes to ETB and attack triggers, we have to play Grave Titan. This is a powerful body that will stay on the board, will provide immediate value as soon as he hits the battlefield, and from then on he will only scale and create a huge army of zombies. Due to the fact that we reanimate powerful creatures that also have a very high devotion to black, we play Abhorrent Overlord. Sure, this creature forces us to sacrifice creatures in our upkeep, but we can either take those harpies that we create, or we will sacrifice one of our creatures that we will reanimate again with Drana on attack. In combination with the sacrifice outlet, we also play Butcher of Malakir. This will keep our opponent's boards in check over and over again in our upkeep in combination with Abhorrent Overlord. Due to the fact that the reanimated creatures with Drana's trigger are vampires in addition to the other types, we also play Crossway Troublemakers. These will give great static keywords to our creatures which cannot attack anyways, so Death Touch is a powerful keyword for those to disincentivize our opponents from attacking us, and giving lifelink to our creatures is a great synergy, for example with cards like Ripples of Undeath. One of the reasons why I love Drana so much is because of the few of the following cards. I am a big fan of the creature cycle that need additional costs to cast them. But if you can reanimate them, you will get a bunch of additional value, because those are really powerful uncommon creatures, which especially in Commander have a very high impact on ETB. One of them is Vile Mutilator from the Duskmourn set. On ETB he will force all of our opponents to sacrifice first a non-token creature and then a non-token enchantment. In the best case, this is a 6/1 trade, well, not necessarily, simply because he stays as a powerful body, and this is the reason why I love this synergy. Another card of those is Arbiter of Woe, another creature that also provides you card advantage and disadvantage for your opponents. And when it comes to my favorite creature of this cycle, it's Dusk Mangler. This card does everything that I love about Mono Black. He will drain your opponents, he will make them discard, and he will also make them sacrifice a creature. I simply love these three creatures in this deck. Another great card is Vile Entomber. This card is an Entomb effect on ETB, and due to the fact that it has Death Touch, it disincentivizes your opponents from attacking you, and even if they remove it, you're totally fine by reanimating this one over and over again, because you will find the creatures that you need for your strategy with its ETB trigger over and over again. Another really cool card in this deck is Twilight Prophet. I really like this card, especially because of this artwork, and it provides additional card advantage alongside a powerful drain mechanic if you're Ascended. Another card that I rarely see, but it is really powerful, is Hostile Negotiations. Due to the fact that you will decide which piles are shown, you can go for a few cool mind games with this card, but in the end it will provide a lot of advantage for you. So definitely don't risk everything into one pile. Make sure that you will definitely get a payoff no matter what your opponents choose. And if you want to win even more games, play a few of the following cards. Starting off with Breach the Multiverse. This powerful sorcery card is feared in many decks, and definitely for a reason. But why is it so strong in this deck? Well, over the course of the game, your opponents will realize that your combat phase is the most threatening phase for them. This means that they will focus a bunch of single target removal either on Drana, or they will also calculate by using their counter spells for some other spells, because they will only fear your combat step. If you then make it to the second main phase, you will simply fire off a Breach the Multiverse. This will surprise your opponents out of nowhere and will leave you with their best creatures that they mill in resolution. We continue with Mutilate. Mono black is known to accelerate really nice, but in some cases you might be falling behind. Mutilate is a great powerful board wipe in mono black, and even though I'm not a big fan of playing board wipes, it's still great to clear the plane for you to then take over with your follow-up plays. As you have seen with Breach the Multiverse, we also go for alternative reanimation ways. This is why we play Ancient Brass Dragon. What I like about all of the dragon cycles is that you get to roll a d20. I personally enjoy this because it always freshens up the table, and depending on your result you can not only reanimate something out of your graveyard, but also your opponent's, which will provide extra value. Due to the fact that we are playing a mono black deck, we gotta play Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Over the course of the game you will accumulate a bunch of devotion on the battlefield, and if you can reanimate this one, you will not only drain your opponents for a bunch of damage, you will also stabilize your life total. Another great non-legend card is Burning Rune Demon. If you get to reanimate this one, you will draw a bunch of value from the sky because you will find cards to your hand and cards into your graveyard. Think wisely about the cards that you want to pull out of your deck and then enjoy the additional value. Due to the fact that we are playing a non-legends deck, we gotta play Saw in Half. Not only a great card in combination with Grey Merchant of Asphodel, but also with every other creature that we are playing. Consider Duskmangler, Rottenmouth Viper, Ancient Brass Dragon. All of these cards can be protected with Saw in Half. For example, if one of your opponents wants to Swords to Plowshares one of your creatures, you will just Saw in Half them, get additional value on ETB of the copies, and in the best case those creatures also have an attack trigger, which will be very impactful during your next combat. Alright guys, these were a few cards that I would play in Drana, the last Bloodchief. Let me know which cards you would add to the deck, which legendary creature I shall feature next. Make sure to check out my full deck list in the notes below, and then I would say see you on the next one. Goodbye guys.